and I want you. We can bring it on the floor. We've never danced like this before. We don't talk about it, dancing on. Do the boogie all night long. Stoned in paradise. Shouldn't talk about it, I want you. We can bring it on the floor. We've never danced like this before. We don't talk about it, dancing on. Do the boogie all night long. Stoned in paradise. Shouldn't talk
Okay, everybody. How's everyone doing today? How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Hey, put a ring on it.
Hey, everybody. We're streaming live right now. So, if you're privacy focused, just know if you get the mic tonight, we're live streaming. So just FYI for the people who care about their privacy. So obviously the camera's not pointed at anybody, but if you're up here or want to come up here and you talk, then yeah, just FYI. You can keep talking. I'm not trying to discourage that. Please keep networking. Okay, we'll just get started then. All right, well, we'll just get started then. All right. Ooh, watch out for that thing. Okay. So, thank you for coming out. People in the back, I encourage you to come up here to one of the free seats. If you do it now, it won't be embarrassing, I promise. If you stay back there, it's very embarrassing. Okay. I appreciate your courage to stay back there and ignore me. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so I want to be pretty clear. If you want to say something, just raise your hand. We'll give you a mic. I don't want to, I don't want to feel like the smartest people are up here, even though Stan's probably the smartest when it comes to KYC AML in terms of founders legal stuff. But if you want to say something or you want to chime in, you can take the mic. If you also want to stand up here when you talk, that's completely okay. I understand a lot of people are in the blockchain, Bitcoin space, or cryptocurrency space. So this is a group for us, by us kind of thing. I want to make sure that's pretty clear. Okay, with that being said, we have some sponsors I want to go over, and then some quick updates, and then I want to pass off the mic myself. All right. So Hide.me, it's a VPN service you can use cryptocurrency for. So if you want to be a little bit more anonymous online, you can use Hide.me. I've been using them for about 3 years now, and we have a 35% discount if you go to the Meetup page about us. Check them out. Bear Tax. Is anyone here from Bear Tax? Okay. Well, they're bearish on taxes, so if you want to pay the least amount of taxes legally, and if you sold some cryptocurrency or bought some, you can talk to them. I'll get you a contact. I'd be more than happy. Or you can go to bear.tax. I think .tax is their website. Founders Legal, who Stan's representing them, they'll be talking later on the topic tonight. Bitcoin Depot. If you're with Bitcoin Depot, raise your hand. Awesome. We're over here. They have the most ATMs out of anybody. Bitcoin ATMs. They also sell a couple other cryptocurrency coins, and they're going to hit 2,000 Bitcoin ATMs this year. That's pretty exciting. Should hit 2020 for that. That would be I don't know. Gino's Barber. So if you like the way my hair's cut, if you're a guy or a girl, if you want your haircut like this, Gino's Barber. They accept cryptocurrency. And BitPay. If you're with BitPay, raise your hand. This guy, if you want to, yeah. I don't know you. Okay, we'll talk later. Okay, cool. So BitPay, they're one of the oldest companies in the space. Some of the OGs. I would say they're the OG company of Atlanta for sure. If you're interested in networking with them, we have Brandon. And what was your name? And Kevin over here. So cool. All right, and then skip here. Okay. Well, Atlanta Tech Village has been really great helping us get this venue. So I really appreciate them. So. All right, we'll keep going. We have a Mastering Monero book reading club right now. So the Wednesdays that we do not meet here, we have a technical book reading club. And who's been to one of these before? Okay, cool. So this is a really cool event. If you're really interested in the tech, I would consider this meetup to be a little bit more high level, where we're not digging into the cryptography in every meetup. We're not really Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but I like to think this meetup is mainly for everybody. And then this one's gonna be like, if you kind of wanna nerd out and understand the tech, come to this one. Even if you are unknowledgeable like me, you can still try to learn like me. There you go. All right. TabConf, so the dates for TabConf are well, I would say pretty sure September 16th and 17th. Oh. Well, at least it doesn't say 2019. I'm improving slowly. So Steven over here, if you go to tabconf.com, I'll go there real quick, because he made a really, really cool logo. Yeah. So this is the new logo for 2020. So if you don't know, TabConf is an annual event that we run. So if you've helped in any way with TabConf, can you raise your hand? Okay, cool. So this is like an event, like I said, it's kind of like the meetup, but this is like a big event that we run once a year, and I would love for like over 1,000 people. A lot of people fly in for this. We're doing like an unconference this year. We're calling them camps. So full autonomy over their 2-day schedule, and they're gonna the camps are kind of like tracks, but they're going to be focused on one specific part of the blockchain space. So one might be focused on privacy, Bitcoin, Lightning Network, stuff like Bitcoin Cash and tokens and dApps and stuff like that. So you get to go around, collect badges, get rewards, and it's going to be a really cool conference. In my opinion, this is the best bang for the buck in terms of conferences. It's going to be in September, so we have a lot of time to plan. And if you want to be involved, just come talk to me or Brandon, raise your hand, or anyone that raised their hand earlier. And it's really easy and get involved if you want to be a camp leader or help run one of these camps. So, okay, let me exit out of this. Yeah, and I need to fix that logo. I'll make sure. I keep saying I want to do that, so we'll see. All right, so there's another meetup group. So Tab is not the only meetup group that is of quality in Atlanta. There's also one called Bitcoin Atlanta, which is pretty good. So make sure to check them out. They usually have ribs. Yeah, what's up? You know, like that. Yeah, I mean that's undoubtedly that's like one of the best parts about that meetup. But you know, it's a great group of people over there. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't make the slide deck, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm open to including them one day. We'll see. Are they still running a meetup? They're hibernation protocol. Yeah, hibernation protocol, exactly. They're yeah, I can't. I tried to go to one a year ago, and no one, like, it kind of fizzled out or something. I'm not sure. So a lot of people have been asking. For the people who don't know me, I'm Michael Tidwell, one of the founders of this meetup. I just got a job in the Lightning Network space. If you've heard of that, it has to do with Bitcoin layer 2. So not quite using the base protocol, but a layer on top. If you're interested in that, let me know. I just got a job, and we're combining video games and Lightning Network space. So I know a lot of people have been asking me, so that's what I've been doing. So there you go. The company is called Zebedee, and I'll probably sometime when we get some cool stuff to demo, I'll probably in the next couple months maybe show off some of the games that we've been making. And then the cool part is some of the models that are being generated are you play these games and you actually earn Bitcoin, and then by playing the game you earn Bitcoin, like small amounts. But I think that's pretty cool that you get paid to play a game, and you might have to watch like an ad every once in a while, but at least now you're getting paid. And it's I don't know, it's some interesting revenue models are coming for game developers, and I'm kind of excited to be in the space. So if you take a look to your left, there is that banner, Free Ross. Does anyone know who Ross is? Okay, cool. If you don't know who it is, let me just quickly say Ross Ulbricht is one of the reasons why everyone's here tonight. He's one of the reasons why Bitcoin got popular. Not just Satoshi, so it took a couple people to find some use cases for Bitcoin early days. So Ross is actually in prison, double life sentence, and the idea is if he hits 500K signatures, he, like Trump or whoever the next president is, or whoever the president is has to at least look at it and maybe pardon him. So the idea is the person who helped Bitcoin become what it is today. I think the idea was early days with Bitcoin, a lot like regulators didn't know what it was. It was like drug money, and like only, and it was very, very contentious. But now anyone who's doing what Ross is doing is it's almost like a slap on the wrist compared to the treatment he got because he was like the first one to pretty much get punished. So the idea is we're just trying to help him out. So I've met his family, and it's kind of upsetting. If you do want to help Ross, you can just go to freeross.org/petition, and you can sign it up, and hopefully we can have him come once he gets free. That's the idea. So he'll definitely have like a tour if he gets out of prison. So I hope so. Anyways, it just passed 250K last month, so it's on its way to 500K. So if you has anyone looked at the shill room today? Anyone? Okay, the shill room has been very active today. So we have some Telegram groups, Atlanta Blockchain, Tab Dev, and Tab Shill. Telegram is a messaging app. It's yet another messaging app. If you don't have it and you're like, oh, not another one. I already have WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. Well, this is just another one. You have to download it because that's what everyone's using. Yeah, I'm sorry. These are the groups that we have. So Atlanta Blockchain is based pretty much just for this meetup. So meetup conversation or some decently, like if you want to talk, ask questions, technical stuff, whatever. Tab Dev is pretty much purely for technical stuff, and the book reading club. Tab Shill is going to be for if you just want to talk about anything. It could be Bitcoin drama. It can be this is what my cat's doing. It could be for anything. Or if you want to shill your cause, or if you have a company, or if you want to talk about yourself or whatever, Tab Shill is literally for anything else. Right now, our Twitter is ATL_blockchain. So we are live streaming right now. So if you want to retweet this, feel free and follow us. We need followers. We have to get. We're trying to get to 500 followers. So 500K signatures, 500 followers. There you go. It's a race. It's a race, Ross. All right. Twin Peaks is where we're meeting after this. And I said earlier, if you want your hair cut like this, Gino's Barber. There you go. Made sure to give you a shout out, Alex. Twin Peaks is where we go after this. So life hack. I think I try to tell people this every time. If you know you're going to the after party next door, just park there because it costs like $12 or so to obviously if you're not going, you can park here. But if you are driving, you can park there and then get validated parking and save some money. Anyways, make sure to bring your ticket in with you now because they like punch your ticket at the door. Okay, so Stan. Okay, and round of applause for our speaker today, Stan. And you can also introduce yourself in Founders Legal too. Yeah, we're not high tech.
Hey guys, my name's Stan Sater. I work at Founders Legal. So today I'm going to talk about the Bank Secrecy Act. Just show of hands, how many people have heard of the Bank Secrecy Act? Cool. What about FinCEN? All right, cool. Fair amount of people. So this is part of a longer paper that I wrote that's going to get published in June, but most people won't read it because it's specific to lawyers, and so I'd rather present it here. So we're just going to go over the Bank Secrecy Act, talk a little bit about the history of it, because it's actually been around since 1970, talk about a little bit about FinCEN and how they apply the Bank Secrecy Act to cryptocurrency, and then kind of what I think FinCEN should do going forward as the space continues to evolve. So as I mentioned, the Bank Secrecy Act was passed in 1970 around the first wave of financial technology around ATMs, credit cards, the SWIFT payment system. And the two goals were to create a paper trail to inform law enforcement of potentially suspicious activity. So they're going after money launderers, drug crimes, illicit use of the financial system. And then they wanted to use that data to prosecute money launderers based on this great paper trail that they were getting tracking all of these payments. And immediately that was challenged in the Supreme Court in 1974 and 1976, but they held along the lines of what's called the third-party doctrine. And what that amounts to is basically if you're voluntarily giving information to third parties, you no longer have a reasonable expectation of privacy in that information. And what's more, the bank needs a lot of your information to carry out certain transactions. So the bank had a legitimate business purpose in gathering that information, and then the Bank Secrecy Act allowed them to share that with the government. And so the third-party doctrine has been drastically expanded over time. And so most recently, the third-party doctrine went in front of the Supreme Court in Carpenter v. U.S., and they held that people do have reasonable expectations of privacy in cell phone location records, but the Supreme Court expressly declined to comment on how that related to Miller and the financial records that it collects under the Bank Secrecy Act. So we really don't know, even though it's been drastically expanded over time since the 70s, we don't know how it holds today. And so from 1970 until about 1985, it was really dormant, the actual use case and prosecution of the Bank Secrecy Act. But with First National Bank of Boston, they got hit with willfully violating the Bank Secrecy Act. And from that point forward, there have been continual adaptations and expansions of the scope of the Bank Secrecy Act, and the biggest being right after 9/11 with the USA Patriot Act. And specific to money services businesses, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that means registering with FinCEN, developing an anti-money laundering program, establishing record-keeping and reporting measures, so reporting currency transactions that are over $10,000, reporting suspicious activities, and they broadly define suspicious activities to whether the financial institution knows suspects or has reason to know that the funds involve illegal funds, or you're doing the transactions to purposely evade the Bank Secrecy Act, or it just has no lawful purpose. And again, they're going after criminal activity, and the threshold is really low. And these amounts, the $10,000 and $2,000, those have never been adjusted for inflation. So $10,000 in 1970 equates to roughly $65,000, $70,000 today. So it's just been slowly chipped away, getting lower and lower and lower compared to where we started. And another requirement is to comply with the funds travel rule. And specific to cryptocurrency, that's actually the most cited violation of the Bank Secrecy Act. And what that means is when you do transactions over $3,000, the previous financial institution has to relay to the next financial institution certain information about the fund, certain information about you. So they're continually just tracking and building that web as the money continues to go.
Speaking about that $10,000 limit, I mean, do you foresee that ever getting raised like 50K or something or higher?
So hopeful, yeah. Likely, no. Which gets into kind of the issue with the Bank Secrecy Act that I'll get into a little bit later, and we can definitely have that conversation.
One more question, if I can. Do you happen to know what kind of information the financial institutions are responsible for sending over for the last bullet point of over a $3,000 transaction?
So I think it varies, but at the base level, you know, like all the stuff that you signed up for your account with, where those funds are, who sent that funds, what account came, you know, all that information.
If someone, I was going to say, if someone behind me has a question, just say.
Do you perceive the Bank Secrecy Act as being an artifact of the fiat currency system? Well, it's amazing, and you know, when that went into effect relative to us severing the gold standard.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with it. Okay, so now I want to talk about FinCEN and their role in the Bank Secrecy Act. So when they were expanding the Bank Secrecy Act, they realized that they needed a separate government agency to track all of this stuff. And so they established FinCEN in 1990, and they regulate all financial institutions as well as serve as the financial intelligence unit for the US. And then in 1994 is when their kind of mission was brought in to directly oversee the Bank Secrecy Act. And then in 2002, with the Patriot Act, they were brought into the Department of Treasury. And then they are now part of the Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. So again, they're going after money launderers and counter-finance terrorism. You'll often see that acronym AML CFT. That's what it stands for. And then in 2012, what they did was they rolled up about 11 years of financial data and put it into a nice, easy to use, easy to query system. And so today, through the Bank Secrecy Act, they deputize all the financial institutions to collect all this information. And so their database now reaches about 300 million records. And they do about 30,000 searches and 7.4 million queries a year. Let me just grab some more. And so they share it with, everyone. They share it all across the US and foreign as well, when appropriate. And so what they can do with this data is they can track people, and they can go into one of two things, whether it's money penalties or up to 20 years in prison. And they, unlike any other government agency, they don't publicly list the rules about how they're going to prosecute and enter into these penalties.
Is it normal for them not to make that public or whatever on how they're gonna? Only agency that hasn't published them out of all government agencies? So FinCEN is like, I don't know, since like 1990 it's became like a weapon for like the government almost.
Yeah, so actually with Ross Ulbricht, one of the crimes that they got him under was money laundering. And so they just use it, and they use it as a backstop. And I'll talk about powers in a second, and we'll see just, how powerful of a tool that can be. And so with this, now let's get into virtual currency. But pre-Bitcoin, anyone remember eGold? One person? Two. All right, cool. So yeah, they were a virtual currency backed by gold, and they got hit under the Bank Secrecy Act. They said that you guys were a money transmitting business, and eGold said, "No, we're not. We don't use money. How can we be a money transmitting business?" And the court, even in 2007, said, "You gotta comply with the Bank Secrecy Act." And so, eGold. And then 4 years later, we had a rule change. So FinCEN updated the rules around money services businesses to account for the internet. And what they did was they expanded the definition of money services business to basically, I listed definition, I don't want to read it out, but one of the money services businesses is a money transmitter. And we'll see how that applies to cryptocurrency in a little bit. But what's interesting is the limitations, what a money services business is not, and that's a person registered with and functionally regulated or examined by the SEC or the CFTC. So what that basically says is if you're willing to submit yourself to the regulatory regime of the SEC or the CFTC, then you don't have to comply with FinCEN. But what that doesn't say is that the Bank Secrecy Act has provision, the SEC has certain provisions of the Bank Secrecy Act within it. So if you're a broker-dealer, you still got to comply with the Bank Secrecy Act. And then also one of the limitations of a money services business is someone that transacts on an infrequent basis and not for profit or gain. And so what's interesting about that, infrequency. Frequency was actually defined, FinCEN defined it in 2002. But they don't really define what is not-for-profit or gain. And so we'll kind of see how that plays out with Eric Powers in a little bit. But more importantly, the definition of money transmitter, it's a person that provides money transmission services. Money transmission services means the acceptance of currency, funds, or other value that substitutes for currency from one person, and the transmission of currency, funds, or value that substitutes for currency to another location or person by any means. So now in 2013, they applied that rule change directly to cryptocurrency. And they kind of defined what real currency was, and obviously they didn't say that virtual currency was real currency. But their definition of convertible virtual currency conveniently tucks it into a value that substitutes for currency. And so what that did was if you are engaging in transactions in virtual currency, it made it easy for FinCEN to draw that connection to the Bank Secrecy Act and say that you have to comply. So when you think about the traditional money transmitter is Venmo. You think about Venmo, right? You're trying to pay someone $5. You put that money into a pooled account, and you tell Venmo, hey, send $5 to this person. And so with cryptocurrency, when you look at an exchange like Coinbase, what are you doing? You're saying, hey, here's $10, sell me Bitcoin. And what Coinbase does is they take that $10, they buy the $10 equivalent in Bitcoin from someone else, and sit in the middle like a Venmo. So that's how they came to that conclusion that a lot of these centralized exchanges are actually just simple money transmitters. There's nothing new. And so right after they issued the 2013 guidance, does anyone remember BitInstant? Charlie Schrum, still around? So they actually hit him with a violation of the Bank Secrecy Act, and he went to jail for 2 years. So right after that, that kind of put a chill in the community because that showed the length they would go to prosecuting virtual currency and violations of the Bank Secrecy Act. And right after that, they issued 6 administrative rulings, 2 of which are specific to cryptocurrency or to virtual exchanges. One of which they said if you just create software, you're not a money transmitter. No matter the use case, if you just write code, we're not going to prosecute you under the Bank Secrecy Act. And then later, again, they clarified if you sit in the middle of that transaction, you're going to be subject to the Bank Secrecy Act, and no exemption is going to apply. And so, did anyone trade on BTC? That was like the first.
Regarding that, Lightning Network, you have people sitting in the middle of transactions now. So what's going to happen with that area?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've kind of been thinking about it. And you have to see, to me, it's who holds the keys. Who, you know, what? No, that's fine. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So who directs how that money is used, how that Bitcoin is used?
So the way that it works is it's a hash time lock contract. So there's a pre-image that's shared, and then it's passed back along, and then the money flows in the direction as the secret's revealed. So on the Bitcoin network, it's totally, the money is sitting in an address that is locked up for the channel. So that's all that happens in the Bitcoin network. This all happens in layers above it with Lightning nodes. So it's very nebulous as to who is actually controlling. One thing that is certain is it's a fee for service, because for forwarding the payment on, you are charging them for the ability to do that and transmit that to the recipient, but it's done over a chain.
Yeah, right, exactly. So in that scenario, right, they're not operating like a Venmo, and they're not collecting any information. They have no reason to collect information. They don't need any other personally identifiable information to send that transaction, right? They, like you said, they're just operating a node. They're just making sure that this transaction is valid per the base protocol rules, or that in the channel they have enough funds to send it back and forth.
So we good.
We think.
We good, everybody. You heard it. Founders Legal just said Lightning Network
No.
isn't money transmitting. We're good.
So mining pools.
Mining pools, they get the Coinbase and then they transmit it to all the miners that are hooked into their pool. Is that transmitting because it's just Bitcoin, or is it just forwarding stuff along?
Right. So the miners who are mining it have been classified as users because they are providing a service to the network, and for that they're getting paid a fee. And they are a person that obtains virtual currency to purchase goods or services. They're not trading on anyone else's behalf. They got that Bitcoin, they're selling it because they've got costs, right? And so in that scenario, they're just operating like a normal person, like you or I.
Is that the same for pools as in individual miners? It sounds like you're lumping them together as one kind of entity. And do you know? I'm guessing you know really like how the mining pool
Right.
economics work, right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
you know, in the traditional sense of like financial institution, right? You're thinking about banks, thinking about those types of entities. So mining pool, they're providing a service to the network to verify transactions, and in return, they're just treated as one, right? Like one entity. But they're getting the Bitcoin, and they're just selling it like any other person, right? There's no discrimination that they're a business. They're just doing it for themselves. They're not sending money on behalf of another person. See what I mean?
Hey, hold up, real quick.
Yeah.
So I have an interesting use case. I have people that talk with my AI digital agent.
Mm-hmm.
She performs a 150-question questionnaire. She asks them if they want to enter into an information lease agreement. They agree to lease their information to me so I can make health recommendations on our platform, and in exchange for that, I give them CMDX rewards, or rewards points, that they can redeem through a minting operation from an ERC20 token to an independent wallet, a decentralized wallet that I don't control, and my money transmitter. I'm leasing your information, so I'm giving you compensation for your information.
Yeah.
I don't control the crypto after it leaves me, and I give you points, and it's up to you to voluntarily mint those points into tokens.
Yeah. So I would say that would require
I'd need a higher priced attorney to defend myself. That's what you're saying.
longer conversation.
Yeah, longer
than,
conversation.
Than
Okay.
This.
Just curious. Thanks.
Did
So this might not be, you may have already actually addressed this, but if you had a decentralized exchange, for example, right, would that be treated as a mining pool in the sense that you have individuals who are just going to use it for their own personal purposes and not do it on behalf of an organization?
Can we wait like 6 slides?
Sure.
all right. We'll let them go a couple slides. All right.
Okay, so 2017, BTCE, they're like the original shitcoin casino. They just listed everything. They were just ruthless. And they were one of the original ones with the troll box and stuff like that. And they were they were based outside the U.S. So this is where it gets interesting with the Bank Secrecy Act, because they were directing it into the U.S. or U.S. users had access to it. So FinCEN was like, "Yep, Bank Secrecy Act applies." And so throughout from 2011 to 2017, they didn't verify any of their customers. They weren't complying with the Know Your Customer requirements. They never had an anti-money laundering compliance program. They allowed over $40 million in transfers from mixers, including stolen funds from Mt. Gox. So again, back to the suspicious activity reporting. That might be a little suspicious, processing transactions that link back to Mt. Gox. And so again, they failed to comply with the funds travel rule, and they just were all around not in compliance. And so for that, $110 million civil penalty against the exchange and the founder personally. And so most recently, in April, this is where it kind of gets interesting from a person, individual user standpoint. Eric Powers, he was basically advertising on different web forums that he could buy and sell Bitcoin for other people, and he was charging a fee for that. And throughout this time period, he never registered with FinCEN as my services business. He never filed a currency transaction report or a SAR or any anti-money laundering programs, right? He's just an individual meeting up with people, buying and selling Bitcoin. And so what's interesting really about, if you read through the enforcement action, it's not entirely clear when he went from just an ordinary person to a money transmitter, right? In the Bank Secrecy Act, there's no threshold for when you become a money transmitter. With other parts of the Bank Secrecy Act, there are activity thresholds, but money transmitter, if it's $5, if it's $10,000, doesn't matter. And so what's interesting is they kind of glossed over that, and they introduced a new term. And the new terms that they introduced, like user, like administrator, like exchanger, they tend to show up frequently, and they're used not only in FinCEN guidance, but they were also been shown to use by courts. In the Shrem case, they used the 2013 language. And so a peer-to-peer exchanger is, I'm not going to read this definition, you guys can read it, sorry. And so basically it's just a person, again, on that infrequency and for-profit definition is where they come up with this. And the interesting thing about the Powers enforcement action that I the most found interesting was the statute of limitations. And so the relevant period that Powers was engaged in this activity was 2012 to 2014, and they didn't bring this enforcement action until April 2019, so 4.5 years after they said he was done violating the Bank Secrecy Act. And that gets back to the criminal and civil penalties. So the statute of limitations for criminal violations, right, jail, 5 years. For civil, it's 6 years. So you can imagine whether this was an actual settlement or whether he settled under coercion or duress, right? You put jail on the table, that civil money penalty starts looking a little bit better. And then also interesting, FinCEN in the body of the enforcement action, not in a footnote, in the body, they mentioned that he had 53 transactions with @tormail.org email addresses. And so they said the use of Tor in and of itself isn't suspicious, but it's a strong indicator of potential illicit activity, right? Michael, you're laughing. Well, it's not suspicious, but it's a strong indicator, Right? It's pretty suspicious, using Tor. Anyone use Tor?
Don't raise your hand. It's a trick. Good users of Tor don't say they're using Tor.
I mean, I'm sure this is the exact same thing everyone in the room is thinking, but is there a legal difference between the term suspicious and the term strong indicator of potential illicit activity?
I don't have an answer for you, right? That something that.
If you have reckless disregard to it, then it's suspicious, probably.
You think the government's going to take a suspicious activity report and say, no, this isn't suspicious. We never read this. Here you go.
Question. So I'm a little bit unfamiliar on what means he actually used. Was he using local Bitcoin, or what was he using?
From
just web forums and stuff.
like everything. It was just.
So I guess have there been like a lot of lower class, like not as crazy cases, but just like local Bitcoin people? Like has that been pretty
local
popular?
Bitcoin actually has accounts now. I don't know if anyone's used local Bitcoin recently, but they do. They do KYC.
Okay. But like in terms of when they didn't, was that something that would, like, I guess, like statute of limitations and stuff, like 5 years ago, maybe they didn't?
Yeah, that's pretty recent. And again, I think it's something that comes out of the continual guidance that FinCEN's giving and the continual signaling to the market of what's going on and how they're enforcing it. Because, this Eric Powers, there's another case in Florida, Espinoza, where a similar deal, but they found him to be violating the Florida money transmitter statute.
Just one more question, if I may. Let's say I have a company and I don't realize that I'm, violating some kind of law that has to do with the Bank Secrecy Act. But let's say I do figure that out a year after I've been doing these actions. Do I need to take some kind of,
like a remedial measure?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not difficult to register as a money services business with FinCEN. And then, if you're operating in the U.S., you also have to worry about the state. So each state, minus Montana, thanks Montana, they've got individual money transmitter laws. So as long as you're operating in that state, you also have state-by-state licensing requirements. So this is just on the federal level.
Would you go to FinCEN and say, I just learned about Eric Powers and I want to just say I've been doing it and I'm going to...
Yeah, so
do they have a no-action process?
On the state-by-state level, there's been a handful of letters to different states. But on the federal level, right, there's been a lot of lobbying going on behind the scenes. And that's, to me, the more worrying thing about FinCEN and the Bank Secrecy Act is how expansive it is and how quiet they are. So we hear a lot from the SEC. We've seen a lot of their enforcement actions. They've been very public. There's only been 3 enforcement actions from FinCEN in the virtual currency realm. The first one was Ripple in 2015. And then they did BTC and Eric Powers. And throughout that time, since 2013, they've just been issuing this interpretive guidance, how they interpret the Bank Secrecy Act to new business models, rather than kind of bringing down the hammer on a lot of things. And I think that's because in 2013, after the guidance, and then Ross Ulbricht was 2014, Charlie Shrump was 2014, it was pretty generally understood that if you looked like BitInstant, or you looked like any of these other, services that looked like traditional money transmitters, register with FinCEN and go through that process, rather than what's going on with securities laws. People have just been fly by night, and let's see if we get hit by the SEC. And so a month after the powers enforcement action, FinCEN issued new guidance, and for the most part, they pretty much just reiterated everything that they had said for the last 6 years into one nice, long, very, very long, very dense guidance. And they just reiterated that if the person's only providing delivery, communication, network access, that's a specific exemption from complying with the Bank Secrecy Act. So to your point about Lightning Network, right, could you make the argument that they're just providing delivery, communication, and network access services? You know, that's an argument that could be made. And then, you know, specific to exchanges and decentralized exchanges, if you're only providing a forum for people to go and post their offers to buy and sell, and then they're settling those in between wallets that the exchange doesn't have control over, then that's also exempt from the definition of money transmitter. But again, if you look like Coinbase, money transmitter. But again, the problem is this is their opinion. This is FinCEN's opinion in today's, you know, administration, right? They're an administrative agency, so they can change at any point. This isn't law. This is just, hey, we looked at the Bank Secrecy Act. We looked at what's going on in virtual currency. This is what we think. And interesting, after I got these numbers from November. There was a public speech from FinCEN in November. But they said since the May 2019 guidance, over 10,000 suspicious activity reports had been filed by virtual currency businesses, and more than 1,900 of those were unique filers who had never filed with FinCEN prior to May 2019. And going back to the terms, they reference a lot of those key terms. So these new defined terms like peer-to-peer exchanger, user administrator, even though they're not based in any law, they literally have no legal weight, like none. No court has adopted them saying, yep, you're right. They show up and they're important, and they're most likely here to stay, unfortunately.
So this is maybe a little bit nuanced stuff, but we've heard it here at TabConf stuff, TabConf last year. There's Justin Wales with Carlton Fields was trying to make the argument of the First Amendment. Does that, in the realm of what you understand and your opinion, does the First Amendment protect or do anything in the realm in terms of legality, and has anyone tried to make that argument in terms of running a node and Lightning Network and Bitcoin stuff?
Yeah, so that's like the interesting thing, right? So that's kind of what I've been dancing around a little bit. You know, with the Bank Secrecy Act, there's the Fourth Amendment, which we talked about earlier with the third-party doctrine, unreasonable searches and seizures. And then there's the First Amendment argument, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of association. Code is very well understood to be speech. It's protected speech. You get into freedom of association, right? A couple years ago with WikiLeaks, right? They shut down all the payment rails so no one could donate to WikiLeaks. Presumably someone powerful in government called someone powerful at PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, and they said stop processing payments to WikiLeaks. And so, right, if you can't donate to organizations that you believe in and that you back, that very much goes against the freedom of association, which is in the First Amendment too. So yeah, those are definitely two arguments that have been circulating.
I was going to say, but no one's like fought that in court yet. No one's like argued that, right?
No.
Okay.
No, just court of public opinion. And so, you know, getting back to the Bank Secrecy Act, it's interesting how we see the market play out, and we see it in headlines. So in 2017, two foreign exchanges, Bitfinex and BitMEX, they start geo-blocking US IP addresses. 2018, anyone remember Shapeshift announced they were going to launch Eric Voorhees, longtime person in cryptocurrency, very much against regulations, very much against government actions, implemented KYC, as he quoted, under duress. So interesting backstory. And then IDEX, supposedly decentralized exchange, they now implement KYC AML. Binance, a couple months ago, they geo-blocked US IP addresses, suspended US accounts, and then they launched Binance.us, which licenses the Binance technology and the Binance trademark, and that is now registered with FinCEN as a money services business servicing U.S. people. And then interesting. Right. No, but they license the wallet technology and the trademark. So they don't own them, but they license it. Right. And then Binance Singapore, what was interesting is they flagged a guy's account. He was withdrawing and depositing from a Wasabi wallet. So anyone familiar with Wasabi?
You said, does anyone know about it?
Yeah.
Oh, I know about it. How much do you want to know? Like, are you talking about the specific case?
Or just in general, what you know about Wasabi Wallet and coin joins?
So I almost want to defer to Mike for that one. But the idea with Wasabi is they're just a light facilitator of helping people coin join, and
What is a coin join?
it's mixing UTXO. Well, here you go.
CoinJoin, it basically, it creates transactions with like amounts, and the inputs and outputs are from a whole bunch of different addresses, and since they're denominated the same way, you can't tell who it's from and who it's to. So it's basically a way of mixing. It's a single coin join is like a simple first round of a tumbler.
Yeah, and so this guy was using Wasabi Wallet and using CoinJoin, and they flagged his account for suspicious activity and froze any of his withdrawal functionality until he answered more questions.
I think like a couple months ago, Colin actually like did a coin join in front of everybody.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Cool.
No, I said Colin. Yeah. Yeah. Like with Cash Shuffle. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But FinCEN specifically in their May 2019 guidance said that stuff like CoinJoin and mixers are money transmitters.
Okay, but is that suspicious activity for the user?
Right.
So wait, so with CoinJoin, everyone that uses CoinJoin is a money transmitter? Wait, I didn't understand what you just
the
said.
service. Like if you're providing the service.
Yeah,
right?
but
CoinJoin's just like one.
But like with like a good CoinJoin setup, everyone's participating together.
Yeah. Right.
Sure, but technically speaking, Wasabi's just like a light facilitator over the actual tech. It's that the actual people facilitating and the CoinJoin are like you and me, like the users. We're just well, if you take, but it sounds like what he's saying is if you take out Wasabi, it's still the people participating or money. Oh, okay. So if you're helping people facilitate CoinJoin, you're a money service business.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy. If they don't take a fee, are they still? If it's just like a light website? Yeah, I guess what I'm really curious about is there's no like there's no terminology specifically with CoinJoin. No, there is?
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. So what's the terminology that's similar to that represents CoinJoin?
Mixing.
They say mixing and tumblers. Okay.
Yeah. Or they call them anonymity enhancing services and software. That's actually how they anonymity enhancing software, and then they call like privacy coins like Monero anonymity enhancing currency. So. Like 2 slides from we can like. Because that's one of my outstanding. I don't have an answer for you. Right. So these are kind of 3 outstanding issues that I find. These are written by a guy, Gabriel Shapiro. But when we look at kind of these conversations that we're having here, and then with the law, the industry is really being slowed down by, it's called decentralization theater. Angela Walsh, if anyone's heard of her, She calls it this veil of decentralization. So, right, people are like, oh, we're building a decentralized exchange. There's no company behind us. We're, you know, and then you look and there's a company, or, you know, a for-profit entity, right? Oh, don't worry, we're decentralized. We have decentralized in our name. We're IDEX. You know, we're decentralized, yet we can unilaterally implement KYC AML. This happened the other month. Uniswap, someone screenshotted like their GitHub page, and they had country codes, so they started blocking certain countries. But Uniswap is the user interface to the Uniswap protocol. So anyone can rip the Uniswap protocol and build their own user interface and spin it up, right? This happened with, is anyone familiar with BTC Pay server? Yeah. So BitPay, what they do a couple years ago, they said they were gonna, you know, start heavily KYC, AML, doing certain transaction limits and certain things like that. And someone said, I'm gonna do it myself as one person. He just completely like rewrote basically all of BitPay's functionality. Well, right, and it works. It works. And so, yeah.
I feel like I've been KYC AML'd at the wazoo over the past 15 years. Is there a repository where it says that Peter has been AML KYC'd at the following institutions? Anti-money laundering, know your customer.
KYC, know your customer, AML, anti-money laundering. It's a global thing, so you'll see it either KYC, AML, AML, CFT, counter-finance terrorism. You'll commonly see that. But yeah, it's all with FinCEN.
That KYC, most of the systems seem like they're going towards Amazon just dropped Amazon Go. They have a payment system where you use your palm. In China, they're testing the SBDC in Shenzhen. They're using the retinal scan. And so all this stuff now is going to DNA-based passwords. So this probably won't last more than a year or two.
Sorry, there's criminals that get involved in it, though. So I've signed up for some exchanges where they want my information, you know, copies of passports, whatever, and then they turn out to be scam exchanges. So now I got all my identity floating around out there. I've done AMCK, whatever, with, you know, 15, 20 different institutions out there. They all have their own ways of doing it. There's no standards. And so, you know, I'm emailing passport copies and whatever else to these people. There's no enforcement. They have all the power and they're forced to do it. It's crazy. Something's got to change.
Right, and so that's kind of my point, right? A lot of people ask if they're violating the law, but no one really asks if the law is violating them. And so that's kind of why I went down this little rabbit hole, wanted to do this presentation, because a lot of people don't know about the Bank Secrecy Act. They don't know why, you know, when they sign up for certain services, they have to do that, and they don't know the difference between scam services and legitimate ones. We've just all been kind of going along with, oh, you know, they say we need a picture of our driver's license to increase our, you know, tradability limits or our withdrawal limits. And so that's kind of the issue, right? So on the one hand, you've got the actual people in the industry hiding behind these fake terms, hiding behind that they're not actually building revolutionizing tech, that they're really just any Me Too company, you know, one-to-one. You know, a lot of these big centralized exchanges, they look like banks. They don't look like replacements for like a new financial system. They just look like banks. And so regulators are 2-3 years behind the tech curve, right? We're talking about coin joins. We're talking about non-custodial products. They're so lost. They're so lost, and at the same time, they're worried about losing face with the public. So you see it a lot with the SEC and the enforcement actions. When you read some of these enforcement actions, they're pretty formulaic. They look like Mad Libs to an extent, right? Fraud, scam, didn't register with SEC, raised a bunch of money, violated the securities laws. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Easy targets. It doesn't really require much thinking. Yeah. Yep, exactly. Wind, moon. And then the third prong is you've got legislators who are influenced by organizations that are heavy DC insiders who like blockchain, not Bitcoin, who are drafting these laws like trying to put stablecoins into the definition of securities. Does not make sense. You read the law, no, it looks like a 5-year-old drafted it. It doesn't mirror what's actually going on, the technology that's actually being built. And so, when I kind of look at this stuff, it really takes people demanding change. The 2011 rule change was in response to how financial institutions were evolving due to the internet. And so now we've had 7 years now of FinCEN being active participants looking at this carefully, methodically, choosing when they issue guidance, how they raise certain terms. And so the future of cryptocurrency isn't custodial products. They aren't these legacy financial institutions. It's more things like Lightning Network, more things being built where you control your keys. And so it's much more likely that rather than people saying, oh, we're decentralized, so we're just not going to comply, more and more technology is going to be built where they just can't comply. When you think about how you would implement KYC on certain protocols, on certain services, you're kind of left wondering how and who, especially when you look at some of these teams that are widely dispersed and are just a loose collective of individuals and not sitting in an office building in San Francisco. And so when you look at some of the questions I have, some of the questions we've raised these questions here, and I don't have an answer. Love to continue debating them. Right? We talked about, is buying a privacy coin suspicious activity? Is using Tor suspicious? Does that necessitate a suspicious activity? Can I use privacy enhancing software? It's good for privacy because you're breaking that link. If you buy Bitcoin from a KYC account, now you've linked one Bitcoin address to an identifiable address. So if that exchange gets hacked, or if it's a scam, right, they know your personal information. They know which Bitcoin address you used. Now they can trace it. So, FinCEN, kind of to their point, if they're saying that these anonymity-enhancing software services are money transmitters and you can't use them without KYC, it's pretty hard for you to protect yourself. And whether that's illegal, you're trying to get privacy. In the news, there's been a lot about Apple and opening up a back door into iPhones. Plays in the same thing. It's all encryption. And so really should be pushing back more on FinCEN performing chain analysis rather than just going to institutions saying, hand us all your information on customers because the Bank Secrecy Act requires it. And so rather, I think it's time for them to put into the Bank Secrecy Act. I kind of put in the provision where it would neatly slide into. But if you're operating a non-custodial trading platform, you should be exempt from the definition of money transmitter. As long as you're setting transactions in between wallets that the exchange doesn't control, because that risk of someone running off with your money isn't there. They're just operating a nice user interface and software for you to link up your ledger and trade with any account that you want to trade with.
So is that how Bitcoin Hex wasn't a money transmitter or something? Because he never, what was the thing? Do you know what I'm talking about with Bitcoin Hex? Okay, never mind.
Sorry. And
can you comment on Coinbase's compliance with giving, I think it was the SEC, a bunch of John Doe summons?
The IRS.
The IRS, a bunch of, yeah.
Yeah, so the IRS, also under the Department of Treasury. FinCEN, under the Department of Treasury, right? They're all sharing financial information. Different laws, but same house. So that was for a separate reason. But yeah, they have that information now, right? It's pretty easy to cross-reference it now that it's in a database. And so, kind of as I was thinking about this stuff, it's really create a activity threshold for money transmitter. The definition of frequency, they actually gave guidance on what they mean by frequency, but that dates back to 2002. And it varies and it's based on the use case, but it's not as straightforward as you would think, because obviously they had to give guidance on what they mean by frequency. And then also adjust the dollar amounts for inflation. That's what I got.
If you want, I think people may have questions for you. We'll go to Alex. He hasn't asked one yet.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. So you mentioned briefly that stable coins should not be categorized as a currency or as security, but isn't it on par with the money market fund, which is a security registered with the SEC?
Right, so that's where you have to have a more intelligent conversation around how is that stablecoin being issued and controlled, and how the value is being stabilized and what it's being pegged to. Right, if you've got a dollar for dollar stablecoin.
I mean, there's reasonably to assume that you're trading something in the background with futures or options or something to minimize the risk of volatility just to keep it stable. I think in and of itself, as a result of that trading behind the scenes, it would have to qualify as as a security.
I agree with you, but in certain circumstances, not to blanket that statement and say anything that's labeled as a stablecoin is a security.
Personally, if I was to trade with any coins out there, if it's not recognized as a security, I don't think I'd want anything to do with it.
So like Bitcoin or ETH that...
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to invest in there, put any reasonable money in there, you want to know that it's had some eyeballs on it from regulators that can assure that the trustees or certain people involved in it are not going to run off with your money like some shitcoin like BitConnect.
Right, so that's at the issuer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so that's primarily what you're talking about. So, from a stablecoin that's just, like a USDC.
Yeah.
Right.
So separately, I'm sorry to hound the mic here. Let's fast forward maybe, hopefully, to 2021 when the entire world is using Bitcoin, maybe 2022. If we're all earning Bitcoin, working for Bitcoin, exchanging Bitcoin, doing everything in Bitcoin, or let's say crypto, what are the triggers? What's going to trigger a regulator to expose or to register something?
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of what they're still kind of figuring out is all the use cases and scenarios. They're in the Bank Secrecy Act. There's exemptions for prepaid access, so gift cards, things like that. There's exemptions for payment processors. Again, if you're willing to be regulated by the SEC or the CFTC, right? You're not going to be under FinCEN directly. A lot of the stable coins right now, depending on how they're set up, most of them fall under money services business because, again, depending on how the account is set up, they're intaking dollars and they're then issuing a stable coin in return.
FYI, if anybody wants to buy a haircut with Bitcoins, we will not require you to register with us.
Any other questions? One more.
The thought, Binance They won't require KYC. I think, was it 2 Bitcoins per day? I know they're probably in bed with Moldova, or not Moldova, wherever they're based out of, Malta. But they, you know, I was thinking that, is there any provisions to say that, you know, like with my thing, I'll do KYC once my members have earned $500 or more of my cryptocurrency? Is there a threshold where you could say, because you know, when we were centralized and we were using a KYC processor, we were spending $60,000 a month. I mean, we were processing 80,000 people coming in a month, and it buried us, you know, paying for KYC expense. So on this new business model, I went a little bit more decentralized, and I said, you know, screw it. I'm going to have it to where a threshold, I'm not going to do KYC until they hit $500, and then I'm going to request it and freeze their minting capabilities if they don't pay it. And that's well under that $3,000 threshold of the Reporting Act. Is that reasonable to say? Do you have any guidance on that?
I can comment on that here without doing more.
But there's no
research.
threshold that they've said. They've just said 3,000, right?
Well, that's for the funds travel rule. That's a specific, just one part of the Bank Secrecy Act.
But there's no, in the banks, don't they have like a $3,300 or $3,000 thing the banks have to report if you do a transaction over 3,000 or something like that?
Right. So that's the fund travel rule. That's just like one part.
One part?
Yeah, that's just one rule of many.
Okay.
In theory, you know, it's kind of a risk-based approach a little bit, and there's different guidance out there. So.
Okay.
Is there any more questions? Okay, last one, Peter. Oh. Okay, no more questions? All right, thanks. Thank you again, Stan. So I just, I kind of want to take a quick survey. So if you find this kind of stuff useful, but you want it more technical, can you raise your hand? Okay. Yeah. So I guess let me get what I'm really trying to get at. Has anyone ever heard of BitDevs? BitDevs? Okay. So yeah, the Socratic BitDevs. So who was here to see Justin and John Newberry come down here? Okay, so they essentially they're doing something really cool. They have like a community. I think they're in like 4 or 5 different countries. They have like, I think, about 10 meetups now, and they want to make Atlanta one of their Socratic places. So the idea would be they provide all the content, they provide everything for you, and you can just consume it at your group's rate, you know, and you can throw like a big thing, a small thing, whatever. If anyone is interested in like creating Atlanta Socratic BitDevs meetup, you could obviously use like the tab, you know, channels to promote. I'd be happy to help you get that started. I would just say, come talk to me. I don't have the capacity to run that kind of thing, but if you like the style that John and Justin did when they came down here, please, they would love to share as much information with me as possible. You'll be part of a community of like 10 different groups, and the idea is you share all the stuff. If you like the idea of keeping up to date with pull requests and security updates and stuff like that, we can start one here in Atlanta. So I'm just want to throw that out there. I'm looking for someone to really have some fire under them and want to run that though. So okay. This is all inclusive. Everyone's always welcome to at tab events for sure. Yeah. Okay. So all right. Well, I guess before we end it, does anyone? I mean, we have a little bit of time. We've never like ended on time. Ever. Does anyone have anything they want to say or anything? Okay, cool. One more? You want to come up and talk? Or? Hey, you want to introduce yourself real quick? Sure.
Hey everybody, Chuck Williams with the Crypto Show. Thanks, Stan. Very much appreciate it. I just tweeted out on your behalf. That was a great presentation. I don't know if you've met Lynn Ulbricht, but definitely get in touch with her if you are interested in contributing to the Free Ross cause. I would definitely like to put you in touch with her because it seems like you have a great understanding of what this situation is, and you may be able to contribute to her team, and I think she would greatly appreciate that if you're interested in doing such a thing. As far as this, gosh, great turnout. I just happened to be driving through here, and I'm so glad to see so many people interested in the crypto space here in Atlanta. So I just want to say thanks, everybody. Keep spreading the message, and check out the crypto show.
No problem. And, okay, sure. Wait. Real quick?
Yeah, real quick. I'm not always out here. I'm on the east side and the south side. But I travel a lot. And for somebody who has a lot of friends all over, I know people from Waves platform, from Ukraine, Romania, Poland. I know people in China right now. I'm one of the top EOS alliances on Prospectors Gold. I've been talking with the Wax team, and Ultra's coming out in a couple months. Scarcity is a concept people don't understand. When you get home, buy some Bitcoin. Like $20, $50, $100, it doesn't even matter. It really, like, people don't understand. It doesn't matter how much you have. Your opportunity for 30Xs are growing exponentially every day. I've seen people turn 0.1 into 10. This is not a joke, like, for real. On coins, like he said, why would you put money in your coins? You don't know. I'm looking at him like he's crazy. 1000X is why. 1000X. You don't give a damn. I couldn't even read sometimes. They're in Russian. You're like, what? I don't know. Click. Oh, I sold that? Wait, is this real?
There you go. There you go. All righty. Well, sure. Last plug, and then we'll do networking in Twin Peaks, okay?
Hey guys, I'm Marlon. Just wanted to introduce myself. This is actually my second tab. The last time I came, it was last summer when I was planning on moving to Atlanta from Miami. See a couple familiar faces, but Marlon Williams, fresh in Atlanta. I'm the founder of EOS Miami, top 21 block producer on Wax, Telos, wallet developer, a few other things. But glad to be here and look forward to contributing and meeting more of you guys. Thank you.
A lot of EOS people. Y'all need maybe y'all should start like a little EOS camp at TabConf or something. All right, well, we'll conclude it here. We're going to go to Twin Peaks now, so that's where the next networking after party is. So Twin Peaks, second floor. I would ask everyone to get the hell out of here. All right, thank you. All right. All right.